Okay, so this is a video about Oxalaia, and from what I've seen, this is actually fairly decent. It can't really qualify as a paleo bingo video. Anyway, enjoy.
100 million years ago, the late Cretaceous had just started.
While the usage of T-Rex here is a little bit questionable, this is from prehistoric plants, so I'm not exactly complaining.
And in northern Africa, the largest African predator of all time and the second biggest theropod known to science was roaming about.
Alright, besides questioning the title of Spinosaurus having an evil twin, Oxalaia, which not really evil, by the way, this is a indication that this guy, this guy uses mass to determine size, which is correct. However, the Spinosaurus was not the second largest. That belongs to the Giganotosaurus.
The Spinosaurus. It was enjoying the beginning of a dynasty that would end up spanning across millions of years. Its giant size, coupled with an enormous sail, would also help secure its legacy. And today, it remains one of the most iconic dinosaurs ever, likely being the third most famous theropod, after Tyrannosaurus rex and the Velociraptor.
Now, the thing that confuses me a bit is, should I even include paleontology bingo? Probably not. But the thing that confuses me is you're using accurate Spinosaurus. Well, not exactly accurate. Outdated from Amazing Dino World. And before that, you just showed Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus. Then you showed an accurate Tyrannosaurus Rex. But then you showed the mainstream depiction of scaly raptors.
Yet, despite its fame or stature, nearly no one is aware of the fact that the Spinosaurus actually had a twin, so to speak. As while it was dominating in Africa, a Spinosaurid of nearly equal power and appearance was carrying out its very own rule in South America.
Now, the thing about Oxalaia is that, 1, it may not be valid. 2, there is also a reconstruction, as you can see, made by a guy called Dar from my Discord server. Now, let's see. The thing about Oxalaia is that it is even more fragmentary than the Spinosaurus. So, the sail is fairly, fairly speculatory, but it's not too far-fetched.
This was the Oxalaia. Unlike its African sibling, who has been known to science for over 100 years, the Oxalaia is a dinosaur much newer to paleontology, being discovered and described in 2011.
Won't complain about the sail design of the Oxalaia, given that it is in not extremely far-fetched speculatory feature, sorry.
The first fossil attributed to it was located in the Alcantara Formation of northern Brazil, and consisted of the frontmost snout bones. Paleontologists were quick to note that this newly discovered dinosaur was a member of the Spinosaurid family, as its snout shared many characteristics only seen in other Spinosaurids. This clear classification led to a quick description and naming, with the founders dubbing it Oxalaia quilombensis.
You know, there had to be something different from Oxalaia from other Spinosaurids that should differentiate and justify calling it a new genus.
A nod to the African deity Obatala. The finding of such a dinosaur in Brazil was big news, but not necessarily a monumental one, as Spinosaurids in Brazil were already known about, and had been since the late 1990s, through genera such as the irritator. However, despite being a bit late to the party, Oxalaia still blew many away, not because of a crazy feature or anything, but because of its size.
Okay, so yeah, it's definitely another outdated model, as you can see here, but Oxalaia.
As the snout, plus a later found skull fragment, both came from individuals that seemingly dwarfed other known Spinosaurids, minus the Spinosaurus, while also outclassing nearly every other theropod known to science.
And 1, outdated estimate, 2, it did not. Now, here is an estimate of Oxalaia. The list is by a guy called The Real Thing. And Oxalaia, apparently, over here, just 10.3 meters, had a mass of 3.32 tons, so definitely did not outclass others.
With the most recent studies estimating adults to have been between 12 and 14 meters, or 39 and 46 feet in length.
Outdated estimate. At this point, it's too late to check paleontology bingo, so I can't really be bothered, but at least the designs, at least the models themselves aren't bad. They are good.
While weighing anywhere from 5 to 7 tons. which if accurate would easily make it Brazil's largest predator ever and one of the top 10 heaviest known theropods.
Heaviest basically means biggest. Anyways, it's not correct.
Naturally, its large size would have made mature Oxalaia untouchable to other carnivores, and it's commonly thought that like the Spinosaurus, it too was its environment's apex predator. Because of the shared role between Spinosaurus and Oxalaia,
Technically speaking, yes, but they lived in completely different places.
and that the two were closely matched in size,
By this logic, you call it closely matched in size. Okay then.
paleontologists have long been curious on the relationship between them, a curiosity that is only heightened by the fact that both lived at the exact same times, leading some to consider Oxalaia to not be a new dinosaur, but rather a new Spinosaurus species.
Okay, what actually makes sense considering that South America and Africa did not split for a long time, since 100 million years ago.
Who might have reached South America via Africa, since at the time the two continents were much closer than they are today. It's also possible that the Oxalaia, or rather a direct ancestor, was in South America the whole time, as roughly 140 million years ago, it was physically connected to Africa.
Which could also mean it's possible that Oxalaia did not have a sail at all. So that's pretty much all there is. However, South America, there's also the irritator and all that.
And so, a population of Spinosaurids may have been divided as the two landmasses split, eventually giving rise to Oxalaia in Brazil. On top of all this, there is yet another argument that Oxalaia isn't even a new Spinosaurus species, but simply a younger adult of the already described Spinosaurus aegyptiacus.
Which its status is debatable. Some say Oxalaia is a junior synonym of Spinosaurus, but others say the genus is diagnostic.
Who hadn't finished growing. Yet, for now, it's still officially considered a valid genus, with the strongest evidence of its uniqueness being the differences seen in its skulls.
Which is probably why I'm leaning towards Oxalaia being called a separate genus, or if it's a Spinosaurus, then a separate species.
As Oxalaia had more tightly packed teeth, a relatively thicker jaw, and a more straightened snout compared to the Spinosaurus.
Although there are differences in the skulls and all, there's a bunch of Allosaurus variety. Some had to hunt other bigger herbivores more frequently, so their skulls were more tightly packed.
Nevertheless, the similarities were still uncanny, and it's widely believed that the two were very close relatives, with paleontologists considering Oxalaia to have been more closely related to the Spinosaurus than to other Brazilian Spinosaurids. Typically, the question surrounding its relation to the Spinosaurus would be further solved by analyzing its entire skeleton, although this is a bit tricky to do with Oxalaia, as its bones no longer exist.
And so its story is kind of similar to the Spinosaurus, although the Oxalaia story is much newer, had much less history.
Because tragically, after its discovery, all known recovered material was stored in what was Latin America's largest natural history museum, which caught fire in 2018, leading to the loss of 92.5% of its entire catalog.
I don't know where you got that 92.5% statement from, but whatever. Oxalaia, a fire engulfed the palace housing the museum, possibly destroying Oxalaia specimens.
Which also included all the Oxalaia's bones. And since then, no more fossils of it have been unearthed. Along with not being able to fully answer the question regarding its relation to the Spinosaurus, the destruction of the bones also means that we don't know much about its general appearance, and paleontologists are not even 100% certain if it had a sail or just a ridge. Although, due to its proposed close relationship to the Spinosaurus, most reconstructions and studies do assume that it did possess a sail.
At this point, I can't really say anything more because the Oxalaia, we still aren't sure if the Oxalaia even had a sail or not. I showed the one that did not have a sail. It's all speculation, so we can't dive super deep into it.
Which it could have used in a number of ways, including heat regulation, display, and intimidation, as it made individuals appear larger than they really were. Beyond its sail, paleontologists are thankfully able to tell with better confidence what this prehistoric nightmare was like.
calling the Oxalaia a prehistoric nightmare. It's like calling a lion every man's worst nightmare.
As across all Spinosaurids, some features were universal, including extremely robust and powerfully built forelimbs. Like its relatives, Oxalaia would have had a giant set of stocky arms that were both equipped with relatively large claws, with the first digit possessing a disproportionately long claw.
Okay, I can accept the fact that you use Spinosaurus claws, because if Oxalaia was super closely related to Spinosaurus, then it's fine, I guess, as a substitute.
Giving it the appearance of having hooks for hands. And to go along with these deadly hooks, the holotype showed that the Oxalaia also had an enormous skull that somewhat resembled that of a modern crocodilian.
That's basically every other Spinosaurid, for that matter. Just calling every single Spinosaurid skull crocodilian.
And could reach 1.35 meters or 4.4 feet long, making it bigger than the skull of the Acrocanthosaurus.
I'm gonna say the Acrocanthosaurus skull is still bigger than the Oxalaia's, even though the Oxalaia's is longer.
And within this giant skull, its mouth was lined with over 40 sharp conical oval-shaped teeth. This all paints a rather menacing picture, and yet these characteristics were actually more good news than bad news for coexisting dinosaurs, as these traits seemingly made Oxalaia better designed for fishing than killing dinosaurs.
Because conical teeth are much more adapted to catching slippery prey than actually preying on other animals. Not other animals land animals, alright. Not other animals in general.
Specifically, paleontologists believe that it used its large claws to slice and hook slippery large fish, while its teeth further prevented escape thanks to their conical nature. Additionally, the teeth were arranged in a rosette pattern, which basically made them interlock while clamping down, essentially creating a fish trap.
And also, at the very least, there is no Monsters Resurrected Spinosaurus footage, because that is even more awesome, bro, and even less paleontologically accurate than Jurassic Park Spino.
This pattern of teeth is also in fact seen in living animals today, including the Indian gharial, which is currently Earth's most piscivorous crocodilian, adding more fuel to the idea that Oxalaia was indeed a master fisher. Even its environment suggests a seafood lifestyle, as many large fish similar, and sometimes the exact same, as those seen in the Spinosaurus' habitat lived alongside Oxalaia as well.
Not surprising, given that marine animals, given that those fish and all of that, many of them tend to appear everywhere as we go.
Including Atlanticopristis, Onchopristis, Mawsonia, and Stephanotis. Don't get confused though, because in spite of its seemingly lackluster fishy diet, Oxalaia was not a dinosaur to be trifled with, and it had no problem holding its own against terrestrial predators.
Using its sheer size, yes, because, even if there are other predators, Oxalaia is not even a prey of them, because they all serve different niches, so they just wouldn't care about each other. They just let each other be and coexist peacefully.
Thanks to its size and deadly claws. Its bite may have also been a decent deterrent, with studies indicating a bite force roughly 20 times that of a wolf. On top of this, Oxalaia had 2 replacement teeth in each socket, allowing it to switch out damaged teeth and ensuring peak sharpness, while also suggesting it may have been used to attack animals with tough protections.
Oh no, not the time-traveling Sarcosuchus from Planet Dinosaur. Good thing it's not from Monsters Resurrected still, but Planet Dinosaur is not the best dinosaur documentary.
Along with being no pushover, Oxalaia likely wasn't a strict piscivore, with the common thought being that overall, Oxalaia was an opportunistic carnivore that would prey on small to medium-sized dinosaurs and non-aquatic animals from time to time.
Yes, but not all the time. Most of the time, the Oxalaia just fed on fish. I mean, so far, this video is decent enough.
This is primarily based on findings seen in its relatives, as the irritator is known to have preyed upon pterosaurs, while a baryonic specimen was found with both fish remains and the body of an iguanodontid within its stomach. Adult Oxalaia most likely spent the better part of a day near sources of water where they could prowl for fish, while also being on the lookout for any terrestrial animals nearby that they could ambush.
It will very rarely ever do that, especially when it's full and it has a lot of fish and all that. A constant supply of fish. I doubt the Oxalaia will ambush terrestrial animals very often.
However, this is where the confusion arises once again, as if you know anything about Spinosaurids, namely the Spinosaurus, then you know that no one agrees on to what level these guys were accustomed to water, leading some to think that Oxalaia was an adept swimmer who was capable of deep diving for food, while others are more conservative, believing that it wouldn't have been a graceful swimmer, being limited to swimming clunkily on the surface.
Either way, Spinosaurids are more likely to be better adapted to more aquatic environments, and most of them are semi-aquatic,
while preferring to stick to the coasts and wading in shallow water. And the most recent studies tend to back the wading hypothesis more, though this is still very heavily debated.
There's a little bit of inconsistency with this video's models. There are a bunch of fairly outdated ones, yet also there is a bunch of up-to-date ones like this shown over here. But, you know, this is a 12-minute video, so can't really expect that much.
Whatever the case, we know that Oxalaia to some degree did get wet, as unlike other theropods, its nostrils were positioned much farther up along its snout, a design meant to help keep water out of the nostrils when its head was partially submerged. So while clearly having some adaptations meant for a watery life, scientists believe that Oxalaia was still surprisingly adept on land.
Probably semi-aquatic. It probably had a lifestyle similar to that of other Spinosaurs,
even though it had fairly shortened legs, and was probably fast enough to catch an array of lumbering animals.
Would it want to waste time on doing that though most of the time when it could just wade it around in the water?
Especially if it was employing ambush, which seems very probable considering its environment. Studies on the formation where it was found suggest that during the late Cretaceous, Oxalaia lived in a habitat not far from the coast that had a mix of fresh water and brackish water.
Alright then, I don't really want to bore you all with a bunch of this fact-spitting segments, but I mean, this video is fine enough, so perhaps I should keep it.
While the land itself was dominated by humid tropical forests, where conifers, ferns, and horsetails created thick canopies, providing ample hiding places for all. Past these forests, the earth gave way to open areas that were much more brutal and dry, holding an arid or semi-arid climate, with periods of lengthy droughts being common. Animals typically try to avoid these areas.
You know, a little bit confusing to have a wimpy-armed Abelisaurid just up here in a supposedly Spinosaur-related video. Also, this video is just speaking about facts of the Oxalaia and not why and how it is evil. How it is Spinosaurus as an evil twin or whatever.
But in the forest and coastline, life was extremely abundant, leading to Oxalaia living alongside many other dinosaurs, including Limaiasaurus, Malawisaurus, Itapewasaurus, a Carcharodontosaurid, 2 Titanosaurs, 1 Abelisaur, and a Dromaeosaur.
That was a very weird way of pronouncing Abelisaur. Okay, I forgot how the guy pronounced the Abelisaur, but it's just not correct.
It also lived alongside other Spinosaurids, one of which is undetermined, while the other was Sigilmassasaurus, who came close in size to Oxalaia, and was the second largest predator around. But it is even more controversial than the Spinosaurus' twin, with many thinking it may not be a new genus, rather a synonym for another Spinosaurid.
Also, I feel like the Sigilmassasaurus, unlike the Oxalaia, is more close to being a Spinosaurus than an actual new genus.
In addition to dinosaurs and the previously mentioned fish, non-dinosaurs were plentiful as well, being represented by animals such as pterosaurs.
You pronounced pterosaurs wrong, but thank goodness you didn't call them pterodactyls. Replace the A in between the R and S with O. Pterosaurs.
Coringasuchus, turtles, and snakes. Much of the life found on these ancient lands were akin to what was seen in the Kemkem Formation of northern Africa, where the Spinosaurus reigned mostly supreme. The similarities between the two formations are again thought to be a result of the connection that Brazil and Africa once had 140 million years ago.
Oh, I watched this algal history of the Earth video with all those tectonic drifts and all that, tectonic plates and continental drifts, and starting all the way from the Earth's beginnings.
The shared life ultimately proved useful for Oxalaia, as it provided the Spinosaurid with an ecosystem perfect for its skill set, and fossil records show that it thrived there for millions of years, from 100.5 million years ago to 93.9 million years ago, when it then suddenly vanished from the fossil records. Its extinction is pretty interesting, considering that it died out around the exact same time of the Spinosaurus, which also marked the end of the Spinosaurids as far as we know.
And it's because of natural selection, changing climates. They weren't able to adapt, and they weren't part of the fittest, so they didn't survive, because, it's survival of the fittest and they weren't the fittest.
No one is certain on what took these two out, but one idea that is usually brought forth in the matter is that rising sea levels may have destroyed their preferred habitats, triggering a slow decline and leading Oxalaia to have to compete with other terrestrial hunters that were better adapted for hunting big game. On the flip side, another proposed hypothesis is that a long-standing drought killed off its prey and depleted freshwater sources, and thus again leading to its final demise.
In short, basically, it wasn't able to adapt to changing environments, as when it was part of the fittest, it was able to adapt, but then the environment changed and then it became not the fittest.
While it may be gone for good, the Oxalaia is still undeniably one of the most menacing theropods out there, and it's a shame that it hasn't gotten as much attention on the big screen as its twin. But the Spinosaurus isn't the only one who had a lesser known relative, with the T-Rex actually having an older brother, so to speak. And I actually made a video on that recently, so if you found this one interesting, go check that out.
Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, this video is actually not terrible, despite a bunch of hiccups. Anyways, did it do Oxalaia justice? Probably. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. See you all next one.